Good afternoon and welcome everybody. I'm going to try not to shout because I think that's what blew my speakers last time, or my headphones even as they call them in the trade. You're very welcome to see you. As you can see, what happens in the game doesn't affect us at all. And we are arguably a day late after Spurs lost. So that, I think, kind of proves a point in the lunacy that goes through some of your minds. So a little bit of a format change here. We've been hounded by mentally ill people, and so this is us doing what we like to do most, which is spoiling and enjoying ourselves. So if you don't like facts, this isn't going to be for you, and we're going to make it really easy for everybody to understand, because I know some of you are easy peeler early learners. What I'd like to do is, because what I would normally say is, hey Tony, how are you, great to see you, blah blah blah, what did you think of, but like I say, we're going to do it a little bit different here, and I'm going to ask people what they think of facts. And I'm going to put this graphic up, if the magic of TV will allow me, which the guys can't see because we're recording this live, blah blah blah. But this is the print off. It's a bit of a spreadsheety type thing, which goes back to 1997, 96, Christian Gross, and looking at points per game, games in charge. And the reality is that Ange, 23-24, he obviously had his 10 good games, which I and others have referred to as a new manager bounce, because it was a transitory period and it had then thus not been repeated. So that's what you call a new manager bounce. And it came at the beginning of his tenure as a coach at Spurs, 1.74 per games. And then 24-25 season, which is the mire, what in fact Thick Dundee would have referred to in the film as the death spiral, where the croc gets you and drags you down into his meat cave, and that's where we are as supporters at the moment. He's down to 1.14 after 21 games, and that takes him bottom of the pile by some margin. Even worse than Christian Gross, worse than the man in the grey raincoat, worse than all of them. There hasn't been a manager at Tottenham that has been as unproductive, as unsuccessful as this Australian gem. What do you make, guys? Let's start with Christopher B there. What do you make of the fact that these are historically low numbers for a manager?
They are absolutely pathetic. In any other industry, you'd have been showing your P45 with similar performance to that, and you can't argue against the statistics. They are what they are. Yet there will be still hangers-on within the fan base trying to defend old Angie boy to the hill, but he is rubbish with 9 games in a year.
I've got a list of other sort of factoid type things, which is quite lengthy. And what I'll do is maybe try and weave them in. But I mean, to sit and have them read out to you, put it like this: we've all had to deal with people when we've had problems in the workplace. And one of the ways, because I'm hard work, is to suffocate your opponent, which is why, of course, I talk about having an admiration for the likes of Conte and Mourinho when they talk about killing the enemy, because that, in speaking metaphorically, is how you deal with an enemy. You extinguish them, you annihilate them. And this list, this charge sheet of stuff to do with Postecoglou makes for exceptionally grim reading. We've got stuff here which is a little bit kind of opinionated, overreacting, getting upset for no reason. But 1.14 per game, 1.14 points per game, which means we're heading for a 43-point season. That's worse than since 1977. We're in 2025. We've got £1 billion stadium. We've got all these luxurious add-ons. We've got all these revenue streams. We've got all of these corporate sponsors. Things are on the absolute up and up, apart from on the pitch.
And I think the most telling stat is that we're level with Crystal Palace, who took until the 27th of October to win their first game of football. So,
and the last team they beat was us.
Yeah, and all in all, stats don't lie. And when they're analysed properly, you can see that this bloke is wholeheartedly not up for this job. And if we continue in the vein that we are, we could easily be in the Championship next season. And that's not somebody talking melodramatic, to hype it up, wanting to say something for effect, the old clickbait syndrome. It is what we are, and it's the way we're heading. We're in freefall. If we lose against Everton on Sunday, which is a massive 6-pointer now, then,
as have been the last 3 or 4 games,
people should be getting itchy bum syndrome.
Tony, what are your thoughts on this momentous time to be alive as a Spurs fan?
Facts don't care about feelings.
Yes. Yes.
Let's get that one in there, shall we?
We're the bottom 3 in the form table for the last 90 days. That's 3 months for those of you in the old money.
Absolutely stunning. And
11 games lost out of the last 21.
And yet the board wants to double down on him being the man.
Yeah.
Is it like they're intentionally trying to tank the club? I mean, if this was like the American football draft system where you just want to get the worst possible record so you can get the best possible player, you could probably get that. You could understand that. But that doesn't happen this way. If you tank the club the way it's going right now, you won't be able to buy anybody unless there happens to be someone from the first division. It's absolute lunacy in operation here. And when you compare I don't get this backing of somebody who is patently out of his depth against 2 world-class managers who all they needed was this support that Ange'S getting out. All they needed was that. And Conte with his rant, I say it was a rant. It's a truth bomb. Let's just that's what it was. It was a truth bomb.
That's more accurate. I've never liked the word rant.
No, it was a truth bomb.
When a child says, and I don't want to put my coat on, I don't want to go to the bus, and I don't want to go to school. Whereas when a guy sits there and says, look, this is going round and round in circles. We've had the same people here achieving the same results. That isn't a rant. That's somebody opening up their heart, if you like, and explaining to you why they're dissatisfied. And it demeans you as a human being to dismiss it, to decry it, to demean it as a rant, and it's not a rant. It's somebody
absolutely
perhaps with emotion, which is a good thing, telling you how they feel.
When you're passionate about things, there's only so much time you can bite your tongue before you say what you feel, and you don't care what the reaction in the room is. And I think Conte was a professional manager with a CV to reflect that. He'd worked for some of the biggest clubs in the world. He came to Tottenham. He encountered Daniel Levy. The rest is history.
And of course, don't forget, he went. We got all of this rubbish from the usual Levy sexuals and now Ange sexuals telling us about what was wrong with Conte. He's gone back into Serie A, which is not Japan, is not Scotland, and he has shown that he still understands what's required. So I don't know what these people are waiting for. It's almost like your job is to you're an excuse generating device. No matter what the crime, no matter what the appalling nature of the thing is, it's in fact leads us neatly into Keir Starmer's track record in his work for the legal department. What can we do to free up the prison system of these terribly put upon child killers and rapists? I mean, this is the reality. It's a reverse thing. Why are you the indefensible? Who cares?
I don't understand. I don't the way the Spurs ball, the way that Spurs appear to be backing Ange, the way Ange behaves, all the excuses that are coming out about this, that, and the other, about injuries, this, that, whatever it is. It's a bit like someone being arrested for stabbing someone, and they're saying, "Well, but it wasn't my knife." Well, so what?
The thing is, I'd like to make here just very briefly, because I've got so much angst for the guy. I could go on for days. Gold my beer, one of the most unreliable, insufferable human beings I've ever not met. An absolute shill, total patsy for the ENIC regime. This guy speaks to a member of the press comms club at Spurs. Okay, so it's somebody who works as a press officer, all of whom are on minimum wage. Okay, there's no superstars there. They're all on minimum wage. They got rid of the one sort of focal point. There's about half a dozen of them now. And these people are not the board. These people are not of any great value. But because, again, of the infantilization of everything has to come down to its lowest common denominator. We're told that the board are backing and sticking with Ange, no plans to get rid of him at this stage. Can I just please drag you physically back to when Pochettino was at the club and we were told by God my beer that at Lily White House or at Hotspur Way, wherever the hell it was, that Ange's office, Maurizio's office was still adjacent, Daniel Levy's, and oh look, the kids are all right. And the deal was that everything was cozy and reciprocal and calm and placid. And the phrase he used was, had never been so calm. Pochettino was fired, sacked, black bin bagged out of the building without being able to say goodbye to anybody, left doing his little emotional scrawl on the whiteboard. 48 hours later. This pathway of information that we've had is utterly irrelevant. It's not even good enough to be disinformation. It's just dross. This is one child wittering to another. And so forgive me, if it hasn't panned out, then why would I give it any credence? And it's the same source of information that we hear all of these boys in the academy and the reserves and all the mystery are going to be amazing. And they don't even get any bloody game time.
Well,
so
look
this business of the board have backed. But, I understand why you talk like that. I'm not having a pop at you personally, but to hell with that. Absolute nonsense. No. And the source doesn't stand up to a scrap of scrutiny. Absolute waste of everybody's time.
It feels like at this point of time that Daniel Levy is just taking the piss out of us all. He's trying to say, how far can I actually get away with at this club? Because the lack of direction and the idiocracy has reached all-time highs, even from a Tottenham perspective.
No, it's extraordinary. And we've got this business where we knew, because we had the information, because we are intelligent people and we have connections, that Levy and Lang had flown over to try and do this deal with PSG. What was the point of getting on the plane if you weren't going to make sure the deal was done? What was it about your company that is in the Deloitte Money League number 8, which is probably going to be number 7 next time that they do the rankings? What was it about your business profile that prohibited you snapping up this yet to be a household name footballer? What was it that prevented you from doing that? Why were you on the plane? If I wasn't prepared to make sure the deal got done, I could have stayed at home.
Yeah,
in fact,
100%.
I would have stayed at home. I hate travelling for no good reason. Nothing makes my blood boil more. And why, and it's just, if you're going to go and get on a plane and do the old, the Viking charging up the beach routine, do it. Take your sword out and be prepared to chop people's limbs off, because you're the Viking going up the beach. You're not going halfway up the beach and then say, oh, it's a bit lively here. I don't think I fancy this anymore. And that is what he did. He's making an absolute basket case of the whole thing.
And then you think about when you were saying about the facts you started off with. Then Chris quite rightly said, we've won 9 games in a Premier calendar year, Premier League calendar year, 5 points from possible 27. These are not conspiracy theories. These are not things that we think may happen. These are hard, pure fact. And if you cannot accept and understand what those things mean, then frankly you need to stick your head up your ass, because as far as I'm concerned, you could just go and bog off, pal. Because any Ange'S out there, if you think that's good enough, and don't worry, it will come good. I'm sorry, it will come good is not a fact.
No,
it's an opinion.
This is wishing. This is absolutely wishing. It's like, instead of me saying to you, I don't know, how did you get on at work today? And you say to me, it was all right. It's a job. I'm happy enough. The day was good. I bought some cowboy boots, for example. I bought some really bi-curious looking cowboy boots.
They're in the
that were probably manufactured in, say, somewhere really like authentic, like Luton or something like that. You know, maybe that was your working day.
For the label.
Alternatively, you could say, "Oh, well, I was going to go in, and then what?" And then that's your cue to tell us a story. We can all sit round like the junior school kids, and you can tell us a story. This is the problem that we've run into. When we hired this guy, we were drowned. We were waterboarded with this fantasy that this rock star was coming. And what did we get? We got this fat coach driver. We were told about, oh yeah, he's investing in youth. He does this, he does that. You won't believe your eyes. It was all snake oil, absolute snake oil. And it's smoke and mirrors. He had 10 good games, and again, metaphorically trying to beat some sense into his defenders. It was a new manager bounce. Are you totally unfamiliar with this sport?
And do you not really? What's pissed me off beyond no belief is the other night for the North London derby. If there's one game where the fans expect the team to be up for it from the outset, it's the derby day. Yeah, we were so passive from the outset, and then when he's interviewed after the game, he's saying, "Oh, we didn't rise to the occasion. We weren't aggressive enough. We were passive." Well, your job, buddy, from Monday to Sunday is to be on the training pitch, to be working on morale, to be working on discipline. You are there to coach and guide that team. So the failure sits with you if for the whole week we've known the game's coming up, yet you've done nothing about lifting the spirit in the team, making people realise the passion. There's a massive disconnect between him and the fans if he doesn't appreciate how big and how important that game is to Tottenham Football Club.
You can sum it up in 2 words, Chris. Football intelligence. And he doesn't have any. No. He doesn't have any football intelligence. You can say, oh, he was successful in the J League and the Melbourne Roar and Celtic. I'm not being funny, but bloody hell. Who couldn't? You know, stick any insert manager here into those lot and that'll be fine. It's just there was no football intelligence on display whatsoever. At the end of it, in the presser, he's going, it wasn't acceptable. It wasn't, we weren't at the right levels. Well, what did you try and do about it? Absolutely nothing. You didn't rant and rave at them. You know, it's excuse after excuse after excuse. And I'm sick of it.
He brought on, in fairness to his stupidity, and I'm not going to throw him a rope here. This is a guy who set his stall out, the midfield, which we'd all had question marks in relation to Yves Bissouma, who had behaved like a moron in so much that he got caught, okay? Because I'm going to be honest, I've been a very naughty boy, but there have been very few times I've been caught. And that's the clever part. Bissouma got caught because he filmed himself and then published it himself. It wasn't like that referee whose mate sat there saying, yeah, have another fat line, mate. I'm just going to record you covertly. He recorded himself. He published it himself. And we then got this, I'm very sorry, lots of attrition, lots of, and it lasted for, I think, 2 games. He looked a bit more involved. But he keeps on picking him, irrespective of this form, and putting Maddison on the bench, which I don't know if is a good decision or a bad decision, because I'm not paid the big bucks to be the coach. But half-time against Arsenal, whenever it was, he decides to flip-flop and bring Maddison on.
Yeah.
What?
And then not have a midfield.
No, and then have
lads, let's go 4-1-5, shall we? That was pretty much what it was in the second half.
Just on that tactical note there, in the second half of the North London derby, Ange was playing 3 number 10s with no pivot. Absolutely clueless. And Pedro Porro, who I think is a player, again, who hasn't been coached, hasn't been managed, overplayed, for want of a better phrase, lost possession 60 times in the last 2 games.
The only 3 to come out of that game with anything about them were 2 18-year-old kids, one playing at centre-half when he's a central midfielder, Bergvall, who ran around like a man possessed and gave maturity beyond his slender years, and Jed Spence, who was playing at left back when he's clearly a right back. And
but
we've
what
seen
did what did Captain Incompetence do when he was asked about those guys having been accrediting themselves in a time of angst and awkwardness? And he was asked, but a bright note was surely the youth that kept their heads and blah, blah, blah. And his response to that, being an incompetent man, an incompetent human being, like when you see somebody telling their kids off and you think, mate, just wind it in. The kid's 6 years old, never going to remember, you know, just like be careful next time you look to cross the road would suffice. But coming up with this overboard thing, his reaction to then go overboard against those kids, the slender years, as you say, was to say, no, I hope they're in pain. I hope they're hurting, because it's important. Everybody knows that we didn't do well enough as a group. And I thought to myself, that is absolutely insane. You should be saying, if anything, without showboating, for goodness sake, because it's a moment of mourning. It's not a moment of joy, but you should be saying, to put the bite on the other guys in the dressing room, Lucas, Jed, whoever, I really want to thank you for today, because although it went down the toilet, you guys at least were showing the rest of them how it should be. There's no harm in doing that. There's nothing divisive about doing that. That's making sure that they understand they did a good job. And it's hugely important when you've got a team of people that even when things go down the pan, that you reward and you vocalize and you reinforce the praise for those people who weren't part of the problem. But I don't think he understands. I think he's actually genuinely that stupid. I don't think that was a mistake. I think he took that as an opportunity for him to show the rest of the world, who incidentally doesn't care, because all it is about winning games. He took that as an opportunity to show everybody what a tough guy he is. And as I've said to you before, we've got now endless examples of the fact that he's fundamentally a coward and fight his way out of the wet.
All he did in especially in the after-match pressers, all he did was come across as somebody who doesn't accept responsibility. It's everybody else's fault.
Yeah, it's petulant.
Yeah, body language it's terrible. No looking at the camera, doing his repeated head shaking, good impression tone. But yeah, you would, if you were in charge of anything and that was the guy representing you, you'd be saying, time to relieve you of your job, buddy, because he it's no idea or no plan.
But I would just throw in as well.
It's just horrible.
And I know broadcasters have got a spine between them, but the way he was talking to that woman, and I'm not politically correct, I'm just saying what I saw. The way he was talking to that woman in the brief thing where they put you in that sort of shower cubicle thing and you're sort of stood there with the advertisers thing again. So, Ange, that was a tough game for you. This business of staring away from the shaking and all the rest of it, I would actually say to him, if I was a floor manager or a producer or whatever, I'd say, we're going to speak to you at half time. Not sure who it is yet, because we need to find somebody who's comfortable talking to you. Just to try and drop the seed that you are deeply unpleasant to be near. We all know you're hurting or whatever going on, but this is all self-inflicted, and you need to be able to stand up like a grown-up. Because, I mean, if I saw my boss talking in that sort of advertising thing, being asked what he thought of it after another shocking performance as a boss, and he was standing there. I mean, a mate of mine sent me a WhatsApp message as he was being interviewed after the game, a Gooner mate of mine. And he said, because he knew I used to work in the rag trade, and he said, I do like his suit he's wearing. And I said to him, yeah, it's a classic, isn't it? You can't get them just off the peg. And he goes, no, what he said I particularly like, he said, is that each shoulder has three shoulders in one. And you could see where his shoulder came. Then there was a drop-off bit, and then you could see where the shoulder pad was, sort of hanging off. And it was obviously so enormous to go round him. Why does he bother? Just put on one of those zip-up training tops and try and just look normal.
And he never says anything insightful. I know pressers are not meant to be those things where you give out lots of insightful stuff about your football or what have you. But I'll give you two other words. Onslaught. Look at that interview he did after the Liverpool game. That was as we said it before in the previous recording. That's a football man. That's a man who understands football. Who has got football intelligence coming out of his pause everywhere.
Absolutely, and a very welcome contrast to Klopp, who became infected by the we've been hard done by Scouser routine. You listen to Slau, and boy, that is the one that got away. When he talks about football, I mean, I don't like Liverpool Football Club. I don't really want to have, be fed any information about it. But listen to Slot talk all night. It's just like this. It's like listening to Emperor Franz Beckenbauer talking about football when he used to turn up on World Cup commentaries.
When people like that articulate their thoughts in the way that he does, and with the clarity that he does, and with the common sense, but also the knowledge that he displays, you listen, you pay attention. He is worthy of your respect. Whereas this clown we have, I wouldn't. If he walked past me in the street, I probably wouldn't even give him two thoughts, because he
don't
just
forget as well, at the risk of troweling this on, because some intellectual took exception to my I never fell in love with the Australians the first time around rant on a previous tape, well, I've travelled extensively and I've lived in lots of places overseas, but that's boring, isn't it? But if I tell you that Arne Slot is articulate in his perhaps second or third tongue, you don't hear that, do you? You don't hear that. That just passed you by. I was praising somebody there. I can't speak anything in Dutch. My German is ropey at best. But these guys can come from a different part of the world and speak with a wealth of understanding and communicate excellently. And we've got this cretin who sits there going, I don't know, mate, it isn't good enough. And it's just rubbish. It's substandard rubbish. And everything Chris was saying the other week about this damaging of the brand.
Rubbish.
But everything you say about the damaging of the brand, right? So here we are. We were Deloitte darling. We've got all this money. We've got all these corporate deals, and here's the man that's doing all of our press stuff. No. That can't be him. This guy must be the guy that's come to fix the aircon. No. That's the head coach.
All I will say, H, is that based on what you've just said there, in recent days, I've been reading a lot of stuff by, is it Jonathan Liu, Sammy Mukbel? Some of the
Jonathan Liu in the Guardian has been particularly
a lot of them are starting to write similar articles, and
Sorry, go on.
And Levy, if he has anything about him from what I've said previously about devaluing the brand, that's a football club that still remains up for sale. Who wants to buy a team that is heading towards the Championship or is languishing in the lower embers of the league with no likelihood of European football in their £1 billion stadium? He is week in, week out reducing that asking price. That's not £3 billion anymore. And people are getting wise to it. People are getting wise to the fact that he is undoubtedly, despite what any of us think of him as a person, a great businessman, but he has not got the first clue about football. Which has been my shtick about him since day one. Yeah,
I mean, and the reality is, well, you've got this sort of sub issue of Sonny going off the boil faster than a pot of water that's been thrown from the hob into your garden. It's going off the boil that quick, and there's nothing happening there. There's no magic there. Do you know what is actually happening? This is history repeating itself, just like it is with the naming rights thing. They made the stadium such a chameleon of a venture that it had no identity. So anybody coming along from Google or whatever business, we want to sink cash into this to use this as a springboard for our brand, because that's the reality. It's not every brand just does the hold. Yeah, just call it the British Airways Stadium and good luck. We'll see you again when the money's due. People just were they weren't even just put off. They were repulsed by it. Spurs spent a lot of money. There wasn't a brochure. There were hardbound books that I was sent photos of that went out to big companies, blue chip companies, and people threw them in the bin. They didn't give them any money back on them. And this is what we're seeing with the football club. So we've got this talk of we're going to sell naming rights. Doesn't happen because Levy steers it down the toilet. And then we've got this business, this entity, which is allegedly worth X billions of pounds. Do you know what has happened here? Because he steered that idea down the same toilet, and it was the same toilet, by the way, he steered the stadium down physically himself when he and his wife were wandering around tinkering, which is like us three wandering around the stadium who have got no background in building or interior designs and wandering around calling the shots. That's called tinkering. He steered that towards the toilet as well, kept us in Wembley for longer than we should have been. The price of the place was completely overinflated. The delay of the opening of the stadium was completely delayed by him and his idiot family. And nobody can see it. So what you've got is you've got no naming rights. You've got nobody interested in sinking proper money into the thing. What you've got is you've got people now looking at Spurs and saying, what tremendous value it would be if I could buy Luton Town, if I could buy Swindon and do like the American backers, the Hollywood guys have done with Wrexham, because that's where the clever money would go. Why would I give somebody who's already mismanaged hundreds of millions of pounds more money? It makes no sense whatsoever.
What he has done is delivered a soulless environment, a soulless stadium. I compare my visits to the old White Hart Lane and I compare my weekly visits to the new stadium, and it's like a library. It's like a goldfish bowl. Bring back the old days where we were in a compact, proper football stadium. People were close to each other. You were close to the pitch. You had that product called football, and it was a more enjoyable time to be a football fan. But now, even taking away the Latin off the bottom of the club crest, putting up signs, putting up e-racing signs, all we've done is forgot about the heritage and the history of our club. And now all it is the mouthpiece of investment people. And it's all about how many different income lines can you generate? How can you keep on adding to the value of the club? But it's clear the bloke does not give the first or last toss about what's happening on the pitch. And all of us, and a percentage of the people who tune in and listen to this show are articulate, passionate, loyal fans. But how can anybody justify a case for Ange Postecoglou to remain our coach after the shower of shit and the dribble that he's repeatedly served up to us? If you can, football's not for you and you're 16 years of age. There's no
the thing is as well, this guy has no answers. That's the thing. He has no answers. When you see him in the presses, okay, I know like I say, the presses aren't there to be the revelation or what have you, but you look for some semblance of, don't worry, I'm going to fix this. This is going to get sorted. It's the same thing over and over again.
At least an acknowledgement that he understands what people are talking about.
Yeah, and also an acknowledgement that he knows what's wrong. It's all very well saying we weren't at the levels and we should have been done this and we should have, but you knew that going into the game. So what you're basically saying to me is all your preparation was crap because they weren't at the right levels. Well, then that's your preparation that's the problem, pal. That's not. People go, oh, well, it's the players' fault. They're the ones who get out on the pitch. No, the manager and the coaching team get them into a state of mind and a tactical state of mind all throughout the week, preparing for the game, doing all the training they've got to do, everything like that. Then, yes, it is up to the players to execute it 100%. But if they don't know what they're executing, or if the tactic is run around like headless chickens for 90 minutes, which is what it basically is right now, then I'm sorry, it's all on you, pal. It's all on you.
Talk to me about what's going on with Maddison. What's the deal there then?
I think there's been a fallout. I mean, this is just conjecture. We're just talking on a podcast. This isn't, I think there's been a fallout. And I think that his communication skills, they're a red flag for me. I don't buy into, the guy is just standing there looking like a sack of cement and he doesn't care and he's run out of ideas. But I bet behind the scenes he's an absolute tornado of inspiration. I don't buy that for a nanosecond. I think what you see is what you get. And what you get behind the scenes is that you've got somebody like Maddison, who I have no huge warmth to. I make, endless cracks about his taste in his the way he's put out his dress, his box at the stadium. But he's a very ambitious guy. He's a guy who has enormous belief in his ability, which is good for a footballer. and has aspirations to get back into the England setup. And I don't think Ange's interested in hearing a damn word he has to say. And he's quite happy to marginalise people. Sergio Reguilon should have been brought back sooner than he was. Again, Reguilon is a player that what's he been under now? 3 managers? Nobody took him up. Nobody particularly wanted to loan him and keep him. Doesn't have a huge net worth. I'd be interested to see what his transfer graph looks like. I think it looks like all the others, where the line, instead of going like this beautifully up to the right, goes clunk down to the bottom right. And I think that, why aren't these guys involved? Jed Spence, arguably, or perhaps inarguably, came into the fray a month later than he ought to have done. I mean, he was already given a renewed contract, which didn't marry up with the reality of his match minutes that he was being afforded by Postecoglou. So it just doesn't make any sense. All of these little indicators point to the fact that the guy isn't a good coach. And by that, there's a whole array of talents and skills that he simply doesn't have. And I think, I could be wrong because this is all conjecture, it's all very well doing the Tora, throw another shrimp on the Barbie routine when you're dealing with Japanese kids and Scottish kids. But at this level, and this is what I keep on going back to, this level, it doesn't work. He doesn't have enough as an employee.
Somebody just sent me an interesting message, and it's from our old mate Claude Littner that was sent out last night, and somebody's having a little bit of a back and forth with him via social media. And he replies, "I have no influence over Daniel. I believe he has the best interests of Spurs at heart. However, I would dismiss Ange immediately. He is way out of his depth. Daniel is no fool and urgently needs a buyer with deep pockets to acquire the club and invest in top players. The sooner the better." And that's a man.
The thing with Claude there, what you get from Claude is always pretty nailed on, and Claude would never be as unprofessional as me or you or Tony and say, "I'll do us a favour," because he needs to still be representing the brand, which Ange is incapable of doing, as we've discussed. But the problem that Daniel Levy has, and that certainly Claude isn't going to say out in public, is that what are the choices for Daniel at the moment? To head off and achieve nothing, flying into the PSG camp, trying to pull out a mid-range player to turn things around because his coach, who's underqualified as a coach, is firefighting? Or does he return to the dark sewer that is the transfer market and get round to the ring-around list that he's already... it's like Glengarry Glen Ross. These leads are old. These leads have been done to death. These people, when the phone rings, they don't even pick it up if they think it's a member of their own family anymore. This is where Daniel Levy is. His leads are dead. His leads are bad. They're cancerous. They're not going to produce any sales at all. Who's he going to phone? Who's he going to phone? The Spanish waiter? Who's he going to phone? Brenda up in bloody wherever he is? None of these people want to deal with him. Nagelsmann must have told him to naff off at least 3 or 4 times. And the more you look at it, the more you hear, the more you talk to people, the idea that Ange was 4th choice, I agree with Chris. It looks more like it was heading towards 10th.
8th, yeah.
I mean, he has no choice. The idea, I mean, if you could sit down, if you could inject little Daniel with a little serum of the truth thing and get him to say, what's the deal? Why are you perpetuating the myth that this guy can be brought round, that this situation can be salvaged? He'd say, you don't understand how it is for me. If I go back out into the sewer and start going, here, kitty, come and be the Spurs boss. Who wants to be the Spurs boss? All he's going to hear is the sound of feet rustling away from him and a bit of giggling. Stifled laughter. No thanks, mate. That's the reality. He can't go to the market. And they're talking about they might get this Turkish guy in, they might get him in so-and-so, blah, blah. It's going to be somebody you haven't heard of. And breaking news, it's going to be somebody probably with a worse CV than Ange, because that, going back to the stadium, going back to the naming rights, going back to where we are as a football club, 14th in the league. Thank you very much, Manchester United. Everything he does, he gradually goes towards the toilet. So that's where we are. So this business of, we're backing the coach. Yeah, brilliant. Tremendous news. My heart soars like a hawk. I'm so relieved and assured by that.
Like all these Ange-sexuals, that's a turn of phrase I absolutely love. I think that is just such a great phrase. But we're still in 3 competitions. Yay! Well,
the other thing, that's the other thing, Tony.
We're 1-0 down at half time to a Liverpool side that will do us at Anfield, and we're not even guaranteed qualification for the Europa League. Yeah,
exactly.
But this is the mindset.
I'll give you a 10 now. We won't win any of them.
No, this is the mindset. This is the loser thing. We're running out of options. Oh, don't forget, we can still win a plethora of cups. Based on what? That we haven't already been spat out of those competitions. That again is wishing. It has no base. It's not based in reality. This is like saying, I need to pay my mortgage. The bank have already sent me the red letter. They're now talking about a date where I'm going to be in court. What are we going to do? I tell you what, I've just found a £5 in an old coat pocket. I'm going to go down the corner shop and buy a scratch card, because £100,000 win would get us bang out of jail. See you in 10. You're out of your mind. You are out of your tiny little mind.
And then you get this nonsense from Henry Winter as well on Twitter about, dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I mean, I read that, and I just the more someone Henry Winter, typically fairly respected. You know, he has been respected. I mean, he's certainly gone downhill. Yeah, it has been respected. But that was just an absolute cavalcade of bow rocks.
Yeah,
it was horrible. It was horrible.
But this is how, and don't get me wrong, I have no time for Winter these days. And I made the point, which I won't go into, but the Goombars themselves didn't get it. The fact that if Brian Glanville was around these days, his stoic words would have gone to, he'd be in a mental institution if he was having to operate as a football journalist in the 21st century. And you got Winter, who feels the desire, understands the need, the requirement to pump out content. His Twitter feed is invariably a car crash where you've got, I don't know if these granddads or whatever say, "Oh, very well put, Henry, very well put." But he's just, it's like that line in Jack Nicholson, As Good as It Gets. I'm drowning and you're describing the water. Utterly useless, without value contribution to a situation. Well, he's got a lot of injuries, admittedly. And if he did have, we had a good a new manager bounce of 10 games. And outside of that, it's been a flip-flop from one near-death experience to another disaster that nearly wiped out everybody on the bus. But these guys, he's out of date. He's out of date. What people want is and this is where I commend the guy for being at the vanguard of the zeitgeist on this shite parade. What people want is Alistair Gold telling us that it'll all be okay. And, it's such a thing, isn't it? Such a thing. But they're going to back him. Go away.
The one that made me laugh today was Ben Jacobs suggesting that we'd be in the picture for talks about Victor Gyökeres. I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. You mean the player?
Yeah.
You mean the player who's already said there's no way he's going to Spurs?
Yeah.
Yeah, but please, you refer to words that a man has said, actual facts, as if that they're solid. How can you just dismiss somebody who says, I'm not going to Tottenham? That's a very cheap shot, Tony. Allow us to have the interpretive powers to imagine that when somebody says, I absolutely bloody hate tuna, and if I even in the same room as an open can, I feel nauseous, allow us to prepare some fresh tuna and see if we can win that guy round. And that is the audience. That's the audience that we're up against. They don't. I will take
I will take my role as the dream crusher. I take my role as a dream crusher very seriously. I'll have you know.
You were going to say dream boy for one moment.
Well, that was in a past life. But you know, what can I say?
But it just will come in handy for that.
Well, yeah, and yes, and also was it the under the counter services at Hooters as well? Mrs.
Yes. Did you have an incident with some onion rings, Chris? Because I got lost. There were so many messages coming through very late last night. It was difficult to.
I think it was a hot chili variant, should we say?
Very good, very good.
But no, the point is,
go on, Tony. Sorry.
Yeah, the point is you can dream all you like, but if someone turns around and says it ain't happening, pal,
frequently,
it's well, yeah, those sorts of dreams I don't think necessarily for public consumption, or certainly in the X-rated version anyway. But if a player has already
hold of our WhatsApp group,
yeah, exactly. But if a player categorically has already said there is no way I'm going to Spurs, nor should he want to go to Spurs, considering how good he is, he wants to be at a top club. If he's already said that, why the hell are we having this absolute rancid, putrid nonsense of us being interested in him? Well, I don't care. Even if you are interested in someone, I'm interested in Halle Berry, but I'm not going to bloody get anywhere near her, am I?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if we could put together a concise sort of... I mean, a restraining order is likely to come through the post. I mean, it has to be said.
Yeah, and she turned geolocation services off her mobile. It's been difficult to track.
And I understand the authorities have actually got control of the device now.
Yeah,
by airmail letters. But no,
my phone was behaving very weirdly recently, and I wonder why now.
Well, that'd be the tracking information going through it.
Yeah.
It's just weird, but this is the whole thing, though. What people want, and they've been conditioned, just like a lot of the fan base was conditioned by these airbrushed images of, and I keep saying again, apologies, Christopher, this business of people wearing chinos and carrying carrier bags and going to the game, looking like people who were at Lakeside for the afternoon, going to fetch their brother-in-law something for his birthday. Those football fans have been nudged out of the equation, and we've now got these morons in who are sports fans, and they think that they can talk about a player being interested in coming to us, and it has some currency, and it just straightforwardly doesn't. It's embarrassing. But they will be the same people who will refer to, well, the board, which, as we know, I mean, somebody asked me on the Substack the other day, couldn't the board have a vote, kind of a vote of no confidence in Daniel? Well, without going into something which is really tedious and convoluted, have a look at who's on the board and then see or make life easy for yourself, see which of those on the board aren't also co-directors of other associated businesses in the satellite industry around the football club. And I'm referring to all the property and hotels and restaurants and this, that, and the other. The whole thing is so thick, isn't it? There is no board. It's the Daniel Levy fan club.
Well, I think Daniel Levy adopts the same principles as Keir Starmer. And if you vote against your own party, then the whip's brought out to play. So nothing in the Tottenham boardroom would achieve anything.
This is precisely why, for any history fans joining us, the amount of variance you get in opinion and direction is very similar to the Berlin bunker. There was nobody saying, no, Führer, what we've got to do is reach out and talk for peace. We've got to do this, we've got to do that. It was everybody was prepared to take the next cyanide pill and then farm the rest out to the kids. This is through the looking glass stuff. So you're not going to get Rachel Capelhorn or whatever her name is saying, look, Daniel, I think enough is enough with some of the direction we've been heading in, which is fact. It's not opinion, it's fact. You lost a bloody ton of money. You took forever doing this. You made a mess of that. You couldn't sell this. This thing is now something worth money that's only talked about within these walls, to quote young Ryan. You've got to stop doing all this. Well, she's not going to say that because she's on the board of directors in one of their property setups. And it's all in the public domain. Use the thing on Company's House. Have a look at it. I mean, it's just not a normal business. Well, it's normal, actually, and very legit in very many ways. But it's not a healthy business environment.
She can't talk at the moment. She's too busy trying to swallow that Paris spaghetti. which I can understand is heavily sweetened. Yeah,
but that's the story, isn't it? It's a sweetened spaghetti.
Let's put to bed this nonsense about can the board do something. Mr. J. Lewis owns 70.12% of the share capital of ENIC, which is the parent company, and Daniel Levy owns 29.88% of ENIC. I wonder if he's going to sack himself.
It's like turkeys voting for Christmas, isn't it?
It's ridiculous nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like chickens voting for KFC whilst wearing pro-Palestine or pro-Plasticine t-shirts. But no, the whole thing is just insidious, and a fantasy that it's now become that this thing is suddenly worth or remains to be worth £3 billion. It's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing even talking about it.
The point is that it's now the club isn't the actual football team is nothing more than an asset.
Yeah, of course it is.
That is all, and it's a rapidly decreasing asset given the way things are going right now. But everything that you see and everything that was done by Levy in the past and presently as well, it's nothing more than an asset, but it's not the main asset. And that's it.
Guys, I'm going to you and leave you shortly because I've got other commitments, but I'll continue for another.
Okay. We understand you're auditioning for a lot of speaking parts in your film role, Life, and we wouldn't want to get in the way of that because we love you deeply. But not in the sort of cowboy boot Cuban.
I think he wants to be the first dancer at Hooters, male dancer at Hooters.
I thought I was the other night. That there being the problem.
That there being the problem.
I've only been here 3 days, but my loyalty card has been torn up in front of me.
Yeah.
So, guys, who's up next? Is it Everton in a few days?
Sunday.
Everton on Sunday.
Right. Quick prediction to keep everybody happy. What do we think? I'm going to go very straightforwardly. I'm going to go for a draw at best.
I'm going to go for a 93rd minute winner for Everton, scored by Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's not scored in his last 18 professional games of football. And it'll be another shit performance. The Ange'S will still be holding him high. And yeah, we won't be able to get ourselves up for a 2:00 kickoff away in Liverpool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking forward to the next wave of all our hopes are now pinned on Richarlison. That narrative has to come out of the cupboard. Tony, your thoughts before we go off and sell home?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a draw. I don't see the new Moyes coming back in. Yeah, new manager bounce, but yeah, I don't see us actually having the capacity to win it. I really don't.
Let me just do the boring thing. I should have done this before, but I'm not very good at this, so I didn't. If we look at Premier League, just trying to get the odds up with Odds Checker, because that will tell us everything we really need to know. Because they certainly got the North London derby right. Everton, Spurs 7-5, Everton 7-4. So they're effectively going for a draw as well, and the draw they're putting at 5-2, which, in fairness, isn't a daft bet because it's probably more likely to be a draw than anything else. I think
that's just saying that both teams are as hapless as each other, basically.
Yeah, and this is exactly as I say. This is precisely kind of dull rubber where you'll get that line about Richarlison rolled out. The sooner Ange goes, the better. We were right. Everybody else in the main was wrong. And all the other nonsense you've shared with us, well, that was just a waste of your typing fingers. We love you dearly. We support the club. We don't support stupidity. And that's why we haven't got anything nice to say to you. That's it for now. Good luck. And don't forget, keep it Tottenham, despite the bastards. I think that was the most civilised show we've ever done. I'm going off to...
From my perspective, I can both see you and hear you a lot clearer. I'm not sure how it comes back.
I think that Riverside thing was just shocking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this done and I might whistle it through. Well, I'll play it first, as I always do. But I then might whistle it through iMovie to just adjust the sound if there's any requirements there. But this thing...
I'd be tempted to send something back to them because you pay good money for them.
They still owe me for a year. I did look this morning and saw that I only had 30 days to write a reply, but I gave them a couple of £100+ so it's just not good enough. Just not good enough.
Like I said, when I was talking to Tony on Teams, fine, I can now see Tony crystal clear, and I can hear you both, but historically, when we were using that, one of us wasn't seen. I looked like I was in witness protection. Maybe I deserved to be, but I couldn't hear anything.
Quick there. No, right, listen, let me go. And I should have pressed the recording. And this